Okay, good evening everyone. I know it's a little bit before 7:30, but I will just make the introduction so then we can go in exactly at 7:30 and start really dealing with the issues. First and foremost, I would like to dedicate this class and also the other two classes for my father, Zichrono Livracha, David ben Yecheskel. And really I picked this mitzvah, this commandment of honoring the parents and all the ramifications of it and the outcomes and the consequences, because really one of the things that my father was very passionate about was honoring his parents. His father, Zichrono Livracha, my grandfather, and later on his mother, my grandmother, to a really tremendous extent. And I decided that I will dedicate 3 classes that I get more and more questions now from parents, from their children, sometimes even from grandchildren. Rabbi, what should we do? How can I sustain the care that I would like to give to my parents? As we know, it's become very expensive. Prolonging life is a wonderful thing, but there have obviously some costs. If I'm not mistaken, someone told me that to have a 24/7 care, if you have around the clock, you can talk about between $1 million and $1.5 million a year. I'm not talking about insurance and other things, talking about shifts, because they can work only 8 hours. You're talking about 3 shifts a day if someone really in need. So you're talking about tremendous amounts of money. So even things that were maybe accumulated or saved prior to it, thinking that it will last, we know that thanks God, on one hand, longevity of life is much longer than it used to be, and that's wonderful. At the same time, it's obviously puts a lot of burden or more privileges. It depends on what side you stand, of how do you help your parents to be cared for. So what I decided to do is really to go in depth. It's going to be a very deep class. I will try my best to do it as in a way that everyone can really understand. If someone does not, please raise your hand. Some of the sources are only in Hebrew, couldn't find them in English, so I will do my best to translate. But really what I would like to do with you is to analyze the details, and then we will come out with some outcomes, if not exactly in this class, but next class for sure. The third class on January 25th, we will talk about an additional very important subject matter that derives from here, and that's about honoring and caring for parents with dementia or Alzheimer that sometimes they don't even know or cannot communicate their needs, or that is just very hard for the children to deal with that and they just don't know what to do. This is also a growing question. So we know in Shmot 20, that's the first page, in Shmot 20, one of Aseret HaDibrot, one of the 10 commandments is honor your father and your mother so that your days will be lengthened upon the land that Hashem your God gives you. So we know there is a biblical commandment to honor and respect our parents. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean to honor and respect our parents? So the Talmud in Kiddushin 31b, 32a says the following. There are 2 separate biblical mitzvot incumbent in a child: the obligation to honor his parents and the obligation to revere them. So the Gemara analyzed the requirements of each. Tanu Rabbanan, Eiziu mora ve'eiziu kibud. The rabbis taught us in the Braita what is a proper reverence for one's parents and what is proper honor. So mora, reverence, means lo omed bimkomo velo yoshev bimkomo, means that one may not stand in his father's place and may not sit in his place. Velo soter et dvarav velo machrio. He may not contradict his father's words, and he may not offer an opinion in a halachic debate to which his father is party. So what do we have? Reverence. I think we as parents probably should have this, like with a sign going everywhere, right? To our children. Don't stand in my seat. Don't stand where I stand. Don't sit where I sit. Don't contradict me. That's very interesting, right? This is reverence. Now, all those things do not cost money, right? None of them cost any money. Reverence. The problem comes with kibud, when it comes to honor. So what does it mean to honor? Kibud ma'achilu mashke. Honor means that one must give his father, his parents really, food and drink. Malbishu mechaseh, dress him and cover him. Machnisu motzi, bring him in and take him out. So now we are talking about what? Financial obligations. Food costs money. Drinks cost money. To dress someone costs money. To bring someone, to take someone to the doctor costs money. Why? I can't go to work, right? I need to take a day off. I need to take 3 hours off. I need to take it on my lunch break. Whatever it is, it's going to cost money. So the obvious question that the Talmud is going to ask will be what? From whom? Is that money that I, the child, need to spend on my own dime? Or I need to go to my parents, especially when I'm young, I need to go to my parents and say, hey, guys, you need to save. And you save a lot of money. Because everything that I will need in order to take care of you needs to come from whose account? Your account. So that's exactly what the Gemara is going to ask. So the Gemara says, Ibaya leu, they inquired. We are now on the left column of the page. Mishel mi, from whose assets are the needs of the parents provided? The million-dollar question, literally million-dollar question. The Gemara presents a dispute in this matter. Rav Yehuda Amar, Rav Yehuda said, Mishel ben, from the sons. Rav Natan bar Oshaya said, Mishel av, from the father. So obviously, like in every good Jewish questions, what do we have? We have a dispute. One would say from the children, one would say from the father. Now, before I even go into all the details of the Talmud, obviously, there are gray situations. We all understand it. What's happened if the child is poor and the parents are wealthy? Can the parent says to the child, the Talmud says it's on you, so we don't care. We will still going to go to vacation every 2 days, and when time comes, it's on you. We don't really care. Vice versa is if the child is very wealthy, and the parents are also very wealthy. Can the child come to the parent and say, whoa, 1 second, I'm willing to do it, but you know what? I have 10 children. I need to send them all to Jewish education and then to college. And even if it's on me, you have it. Why don't you use yours? You're not going to take it to your grave, right? We all know that. Another question that we will need to discuss, and we'll discuss all of it. What's happened if you have, let's say that the halacha says that it comes from the children. Let's say there are 4 children. One of them is a multi-billionaire, the others are not. Is the obligation is more on the multi-billionaire, or it's equal divided by 4? You're with me? Those are the questions that we will deal with, that I had to deal with that personally with some members, and this is going to be a growing question. There is no question about it. So just in terms of, just to try to put the borders of our discussion, we do have 2 extreme questions, 2 extreme answers, sorry. One says on the children, one says on the parents. But obviously, where it's really become interesting is what? Is the gray area. That's basically called life. Okay, now, so let's see what the Gemara says. A ruling is issued. Which means the rabbis rendered a decision to Rav Yirmiyah, and some say it was for Rav Yirmiyah's son, in accordance with the one who says that it is from the father's assets. So it seems to be that Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Jeremiah, or his son, came to the rabbis and asked, okay, who should pay for the care for my father or for my mother? And the answer that the rabbis gave him was what? You go to the bank and you demand what? A power of attorney, and you will take money from whose account? From your parents. So it seems to be that if I will stop right here, the halachic decision will be what? From the parents. Now, that's wonderful. And I will give you 2 scenarios that will create issues. A, what's happened if the parents just don't have it? They don't have it. A. B, they do have it, and they planned wonderfully. But they plan to die in 85. They are already 97. They are already 105. They are still going. And their needs are growing with them. There is just no money anymore. So what do you do? So let's see what the Gemara has to say. Meitivei. So they challenge this from a Braita. You know what, just to save some time, I will read only the English. It is stated, honor your father and your mother. And it is stated elsewhere, honor Hashem from your fortune. From the similar formulation of the 2 verses, it can be inferred that, just as their honoring God involves a loss of money, also here, honoring one's parents involves a loss of money. But if you say that only the father's assets needs to be used to provide his needs, what is the difference to the son? Now, don't forget, the Talmudic logic is to take the two opinions and to do what? To question and to challenge each one of them from a different source. Everyone is with me? Okay. So they took the opinion that says that the money needs to come from whose assets? From the parents' assets. Now, there are two verses. It says that you shall honor your parents, and it also said that you shall honor Hashem. Part of honoring Hashem is also to spend money on God. What does that mean? You don't take God to dinner. But God's commandment sometimes requires us to spend money. For example, etrog, lulav, tefillin, sukkot, matzot, everything, right? Kosher food, Jewish education, shul dues, right? Everything. Everything, it costs us money. And if it costs us money, we give that money, right? Now, who gives that money? We don't go to our parents and say, hey, you raised us Jewish, so you need to pay for that. It would be nice, but we don't do that. So if you say that if it comes from the father, why do I care if there is loss of money or not? Does not come from my own pocket. It comes from whose pocket? From my parents. Everyone is with me with a challenge? Okay. So what's the answer? So the Gemara answers, lebitul melacha. The son could lose money because of the disruption of his work. Which means what? It's true. It should come from the parents. However, the son or the daughter, they need to take time from their work from time to time to do what? To care for their parents. And even if it does not, even if we don't talk about days and weeks, if your parent needs to go to the doctor and they can't, you need to go and to pick them and to take them. And we know that every visit at the doctor, it's 3 hours just in the waiting room, right? So here you go, 3 hours are gone, right? So you go and a half a day of your job is gone. That means, so the boss can be very nice to you and he will accommodate you or she will accommodate you for a day, 2, 3, 4, 5. But after 7 days straight like that, he or she will come to you and say to you, what? I'm very sorry and I understand and I have the same thing with my parents, but if you want to take off or without pay. So there's going to be a loss of money. Now, let's stop here for a second. If I say, and I take it to the extreme, that the money or the funds to care for our parents comes from their account, it seems to be that there are two levels, which means if you talk about the real needs to put them in a home or to care for them for a 24/7 care or to do whatever it is, that money comes from where? From their assets. However, it does not exempt me from saying, no, I'm not going to lose even 1 day of work. Or if I lose it, I'm going to take the money from you. That is not happening. Meaning, even according to the opinion that says that the assets must come from the parents, they still realize the possibility that for the children it will also cost some money. Not everything, but some money. But you know what? I'll give you another example. When I say some money, it can be a tremendous amount of money. For example, let's say the children and the parents do not live in the same place. They need to fly. They need to fly out. To fly out, it's expensive, very expensive. Even if it's domestically. I'm not talking about abroad, that it costs a lot of money. Obviously, according to this opinion, the child cannot get a refund from his parents. That's not happening. So even though that it's not $1 million a year or $700,000 a year, it can be accumulated to $10,000, $20,000 that needs to come from whom? From the children, even according to the opinion that the assets needs to come from whom? From the parents. Very good. Now, let's move on. So now the Gemara is going to challenge the other opinion. What's the other opinion? That it comes from the children. So the Gemara asks like that. Tashma, come learn the answer from a Braita. 2 brothers, 2 partners, a father and his son, a teacher and his disciple. May all redeem ma'aser sheni, the tithe, produce for each other, and they may feed each other ma'aser ani produce. But if you say a father is supported from the son's assets, how may the son give his ma'aser ani to his father? This son will be found to be paying his personal debt out of the funds of the poor. Which means what? I'll give you an introduction. We know that when we harvest the produce from the field, we need to give ma'asrot, tithes. So we give Truma Gdola for the coin. The big Truma goes to the coin, even though that in terms of quantity, it's the least. But okay, it's called Truma Gdola because that goes the first thing to go. Okay. And then we have Maaser Sheni. We give another tithe to whom? To the Levites. And then there are different tiers that we give tithe to whom? To the Ani'im, to the poor people. Okay? Now, let's say that a son and a father form relationship together, and they have a field. And the father needs to be supported by his son. The father does not have enough money, and he needs some food also. According to the Talmudic source, the son can take an apple that was part of the tithe to the poor people, and instead of giving it to Moishale, the poor, he can give it to whom? To his father. Whoa, 1 second, what's the problem with that? If you say that the obligation is on the child, that he needs to support his parents from his own money, if he will use the money that was supposed to be designated to the poor people, what does he do? He takes money from the poor people and give it to his father. Basically, he is fulfilling his own obligation through what? Through tzedakah. It's like, if you want something to illustrate it, there is a pushka box here, okay? If you have an obligation, according to that opinion, to support your parents, you say, oh, okay, I go to the pushke, I go to the tzedakah box, we'll take some money and feed my parents. Can you do that? No. You can maybe ask the rabbi, can you give me a loan that I can get, but you cannot do it by yourself. You can't take money that was designated to poor people to feed your own parents if that's your obligation. Good question? Pretty good. What's the answer? So the Gemara says, the Gemara refutes the proof, and the Gemara says, no, the Braita is needed to teach that for the father's excess needs, one may use Maaser Ani. Which means what? When the Talmud says that really the obligation is on the children, it's really for what? For basic needs. And that's really their obligation to write checks from their own accounts. But when it comes to more than the basic, then they can use money or assets or funds that were designated for what? For tzedakah, for poor people. Now, are you happy with the answer? Why not?
Why should the poor suffer?
Okay, so one, why should the poor suffer? Why should the poor suffer? Okay, why to add more suffering to them? Okay, good. One question. Second question.
Doesn't it seem like the basic needs are more important to go out of tzedakah than the excess needs?
Okay, interesting. If you want to consider them as poor people, give them from that tzedakah, and the other things should come from you. If you think that your father needs to drive a Jaguar, okay, buy it from him. Very good. Second question. Third question. Just the most simple question. I'm a simple Jew. Simple question. Definitions. I'm looking for definitions. My basic needs are not your basic needs. Who defines what is basic needs? Some people like to eat a steak every night, and some people, it will be good for them bread and cheese. So who defines basic needs, and also who defines luxury?
But the Gemara already talk about it. It says that what is when they talk about
Afilu sus lirkav alav. That's what you are referring to?
No, 5 things that we have to pay for when we make damage to somebody. When you give him שבט. What is שבט? כמוכר כשהויים בשוק. How much we have to pay him? Even he is very, very rich, he has to get every day how the person get money from the somebody who's selling the
right. So there are two things.
So actually, this is the
there is a huge difference between damaging someone and having to pay the 5 damages, what Moshe Shimshon is talking about, and honoring your parents. There, it's very specific to this person, and it's also temporarily. Here you talk about permanently. You're talking about a long-term care, not only to just give it to him for the next 2 months. The next 2 months you can evaluate it.
This way he's not going to starve or to be, you give him the minimum that he has to live. This
so
is what the Gemara.
But that's again. This is this is true with a person who is a worker and now he can't walk. So you estimate him or you evaluate him according to the market. Here, it's not someone who cannot work and you need to try to evaluate how much he worth in the market. The question there is, what are basic needs? If I will throw that question here, if I will say someone is unemployed, how much should he get? We will all say the basic salary of what, I don't know, it's $7.50 here, $9.50, $11.50, I don't know, whatever for an hour. Now, if he was a stockbroker and he made $2 million a year, we will need to evaluate him probably in comparing to other stock markets and what can he do or what he cannot do. If I will ask here, what are the basic needs of a person to eat for dinner? I will get, I don't know, 60 opinions here, 50 opinions here.
I don't have money, and I have to help my father.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we will talk about the minimums that they can give, also that I can live and he can live.
Okay, so we will talk
about
about
only if he's living luxury home. So maybe we have to make changes. So this is the way that we.
Okay, so the question is, do we try to adjust or we don't try to adjust, and who will define what is the basic that we can adjust to that basic? Okay, so we will have all those questions probably referred to a little bit later on. Okay, now let's skip, just because of the time, let's skip to the end of this page. The Gemara makes another attempt, you see that, to prove whose assets are used to provide the father's needs. Tashma, come and learn the answer from a Braita. They asked Rabbi Eliezer, to what extent is one obligated to honor his father and mother? He answered them, to the point that if the father takes a wallet and throws it into the sea in his son's presence. So you see your parents take their wallet and throw it to the Mississippi River, and you need to what? To still honor them and not to embarrass them. So the Gemara says like that. The son does not embarrass him. But if you say that only the father's assets needs to be used to provide his needs, what is the difference to the son? Which means what? What does the Talmud wants to prove from here? If you want to say that the obligation comes from whose assets? From the parents' assets. So if the father takes his wallet and throws it to the river, why do I care? It's from your money. It's not mine. So the Gemara answers, Bera'ui leYorsho. The Braita refers to the potential heir who is adversely affected by any loss incurred by his father. The son wants that wallet. Not the wallet, he wants the credit card in the wallet, okay? So when the father throws it into the Mississippi River, he is losing money. So again, that basically corresponds to what we said before, that even according to the opinion that says that the assets comes from the parents, there is an obligation on the children to spend some money in order to what? To honor their parents. Okay. There is more here, but just in order to have something that is concrete, let's summarize what we have until now. We are asking who is obligated to pay for honoring your parents. We saw two opinions. From the children, the obligation is on the children, or the obligation is on the parents. Even according to the opinion that says that the obligation is on the parents, it does not exempt the child not to spend any money to honor his parents. May it be to fly there, to spend some time, to lose time at work, whatever it is, it's on the child. Now, flip side, if you say it's on the child, we do see that we have also two levels. We have basic needs, whatever that means, and then we have what? Extra. And the extra, that's some kind, become more of a discretionary for the child. Okay? Now, if you turn the page 2, we're on page 2, Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchak, 11th century in France, a famous commentator on the Torah and obviously on the Talmud. If you see the underlines, it says like that, le'a'adafa, which means what? Luxury or excess, more than the basic. It says, alav mutar le'achilo le'ashkerto, meaning the son, the child, is obligated to feed and to give drinks to his parents. Midah beinonit. What is midah beinonit? Midah beinonit is not basic needs. Midah beinonit is what? Middle, intermediate. Now this becoming even more complicated. Basic needs, maybe Moshe Shimshon was right. I can go and ask, the Department of, of Society or whatever you have it here, of welfare, and ask, what do you give to the homeless? Okay? Even though I'm not sure you want to put your parents with the homeless. But I can understand it. But now Rashi says midah beinonit, intermediate level, whatever that means. ואם אביו צריך לסעודה יתרה, and if his father needs something more than that, יאכילנו מעשר עני, then you can use your what? Your tzedakah funds. So basically, if you put in the pushke $100 every day, and after 10 days you have what? $1,000, and your father, or let's say, I'll give you an example. The doctor says that your parents needs to eat a steak or meat once a week. It happens many times. Okay? They need to eat meat once a week. Is that an intermediate level? I don't think so. Maybe yes. We don't know how big is the steak. I don't know if that's intermediate level or not. I don't know how many times people eat meat during the week that I can do an average or I can do a mean. I have no idea. But let's say that it's more than the average. So basically I can go to my tzedakah box, take money and buy the meat for my parents and give it to them once a week according to that opinion. Okay. Now, as I always like to do, is to try to compare, if we can, the Babylonian Talmud to another Talmud. There was another Talmud that was composed where? In Eretz Israel. It's called the Jerusalem Talmud, Talmud Yerushalmi. And we find in the Talmud Yerushalmi a very interesting discussion. Again, there's no English for that one. So I will just try to summarize it. It's the first line that it's underlined. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, Gadol hu kibud av va'em, greater is honoring your parents, she'edifo HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoter michvodo. That Hashem in a way gave precedent to honoring your parents more than he demanded an honor for himself. How do we know that? Ne'emar, it says, kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, you should honor, you should respect your father and your mother. Ve'ne'emar, and it says, kabed et Hashem me'oncha, honor Hashem from your funds, from your assets. Mima ata mechabdo, mima shechanancha, מפריש לקט, שכחה, פאה, מפריש תרומה ומעשר ראשון ומעשר שני ומעשר עני, I will translate in a minute, וחלב ועושה סוכה ולולב ושופר ותפילין וציצית ומאכיל את העניים ואת הרעבים ומשקה את עצמאים, אם יש לך אתה חייב בכולן, ואם אין לך אין אתה חייב באחת מהן. He says, when God demanded you to spend money to honor him, we have all the list. Buy sukkah, tefillin, mezuzah, tzitzit, kosher food, Jewish education, dues for the shul. Even to be buried is expensive. Okay? To live is expensive and to die is expensive. Okay? All of that is very expensive. But if you don't have the money, most of those commandments, you don't need to do anything about them. If you don't have the money, you just don't have the money. If you don't have money to buy tefillin, what do? You borrow from someone else. If you don't have money for arba minim, for the 4 species on Sukkot, what do? You try your best to do it on the first day, to buy your own. But if you don't have it, what do? You borrow from someone else. There are only 2 things that we know for sure in the halakha that you really need to go and to basically collect money. But the rest of them, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. But when it comes אצל כיבוד אב ואם, בין שיש לך הון, בין שאין לך הון, כבד את אביך ואת אמך. When it comes to honoring your parents, even if you have money, if you don't have money, you need to honor your parents. ואפילו אתה מסבב על הפתחים. And even if you are what? Become a beggar. You go and knock on different doors and ask for money. Now, I'm going to ask you a tricky question. According to the Jerusalem Talmud, one thing for sure we know, that honoring your parents, now we understand probably why it made it to what? To the 10 Commandments. I mean, it's like really, really important, right? Okay. However, can we derive any conclusion regarding the opinion of the Jerusalem Talmud regarding our initial question, who is obligated to pay? Can someone tell me? And I will rephrase the question again, that it's a tricky question. Is the question clear? Maybe my question is not so clear. After we read the Jerusalem Talmud says that the honoring your parents is even greater than honoring God. Why? Because when it comes to honoring God, if you have the money, you do it. If you don't have the money, most of the times you don't need to do it. But when it comes to honoring your parents, I don't care if you have the money, you don't have the money, you need to be a beggar and get the money. So now I want to ask you the question. Is according to the Jerusalem Talmud, the obligation to support your parents are on the children or on the parents? So it seems to be that it should be on the children, because if you have money or you don't have money, I don't really care, you need to go and beg. However, and that's why I called it a tricky question, you can say that perhaps the Jerusalem Talmud, you can say that it's more probable, or the probability that it's on the children is probably more accurate. However, it cannot be certain. Why? Because perhaps the Jerusalem Talmud talks only if the parents don't have the money. But if the parents do have the money, you do not need to beg for that money. A. B. I will jump the gun a little bit because I'm not sure we will get to it today. You may say also that going from door to door to collect money is not for your parents, it's for you. Which means sometimes there are times that you need to take care of your parents, so basically you can't work anymore. Now you do have money, you have savings and things like that, and with that you will support your parents. Now how are you going to support yourself? By knocking on every door. Which means going to become a beggar is not to fulfill your obligation to what? To honor your parents, but rather to become a beggar is to sustain whom? Yourself. Very good. So that's why I wanted you to think about this Jerusalem Talmud in a very tricky way, because there is no direct conclusion that will indicate exactly what is, it will indicate exactly what is the obligation, on whom is that obligation really applies on. Okay, now let's turn the page. Okay, I know it's a lot of Hebrew, so please raise your hand, raise your face from those pages, okay? I will present to you the problems. How many of you play chess here? Chess. Oh, very good. Next time I ask you next week, I want more hands, please. So, why did I ask that question? Because what's happened with chess is that sometimes you need to think about multiple moves, and you need to try to predict someone else's move, and you need to be always one step ahead of your opponent, right? And sometimes you need to take into one of the best moves in chess is that you move one of your pieces that threaten more than two pieces of your opponent. And basically, he needs to make the decision what to sacrifice. You with me? Okay. Tosfot is asking a triangle question that I love. In chess, they call it mazleg, fork, because fork has more than one, what do you call it? You understand me, very good. So Tosfot, left column, says like that. He says that Rabbeinu Yitzchak asked a very interesting question. He says, according to the opinion that the obligation to support the parents is on the children, according to that opinion, I would like to entertain a very interesting question. What's the question? What's happened when you have the mitzvah of honoring your parents, my own lost object, and my friend's lost object at the same time? What do I mean by that? Someone went to honor his parents. He went to visit with his parent and to feed him and to give him to eat and everything. And then he goes to his wallet for just to say, oh my goodness, I don't know where I put my wallet. I need to find my wallet. That's the first conflict, okay? He's with his parents, then he realized, oh my goodness, I lost my wallet somewhere. I need to see where is my wallet. Honoring my parents, finding my own property. Now, the fun. On the way, when he's just thinking about it, he gets a phone call from his friend. And his friend told him, you remember that before you went to your parent, we went to that restaurant, I lost my wallet there, I think. Can you please help me? I'm at the airport, I can't go there. My passport is also there. Oh, I'm really becoming it's becoming very dramatic, okay? My passport is there too. Can you please do me a favor and find my wallet? So now what do we have? Triangle mitzvot. We have honoring my parent, my own lost object, that is not a mitzvah, but it's my property. And the third thing is what? Is the lost object of my friend. So the question is, what takes precedent according to the opinion that says that the obligation of the funds to support your parents is on the child? You are awake. Very good. So he says like that. He says, first and foremost, let's try to prioritize things. If I compare only honoring my parents and returning back the lost object for my friend, what do you think take precedent? Tricky. Returning back the lost object. Interesting, right? How do we know that? Because the Gemara says in Baba Metzia that if your father says to you, do not return the lost object to your friend, what do you tell your father? With all due respect, Father, I know I need to respect you, but you cannot tell me not to do a mitzvah. I'm very sorry. And you need to go back and return the lost object to your friend.
Is this where he has the object, or he has to go help him look for it?
He probably found it,
He
and
would have to stop everything he's doing to go help him look for it, would he?
no.
He has it.
He has
That's
it.
the
Right, he has it. That's true. So the Gemara says that what? That in that case, it takes precedent to what? To give back the lost object. Now, it can take an hour, it can take 2 minutes, or it can take a week. We don't know where is that, we can't FedEx it to him, especially not in the times of Baba Metzia. So that's the first thing. Now, however, when it comes, now second tier, if I have my lost object to try to find, and I have my friend's object to find or to return, what takes precedent? Myself. Sure. My possessions takes precedent over my friends. So, if this is true, honoring my parent, returning back lost object to my friend, what takes precedent? My friend. Me and my friend, what takes precedent? Me. Therefore, logically, I would say that me and honoring my parents, what will take precedent? Me, but it's not true. Because whenever it's my needs and my honoring my parents, what do I need to do? Honor my parents, so what do I do?
Return the lost object to your friend.
The what?
Help the friend find the passport.
I thought you would say, give your parents to your friend and then take your object. But if we don't do that, right? If we don't do that, we have a problem. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful. That's a very interesting question. So he says like that. He says, ונראה לי, he says that the solution should be like that. שיניח כבוד אביו ואבידת חברו ויעסוק באבידתו. He says, according to that opinion, that the obligation is on the child, he needs to say to his father, I'll take care of you, but later, not now, I need to go. And he needs to tell his friend, I can't come, sorry, and I need to deal with my own lost object. Why? דעה דאמר, כיבוד אב קודם, היינו דווקא להניח לאביו לעשות רצונו בממונו, לפי שזהו גוף הכיבוד. Tosfot says, when that opinion said that the obligation to support the parents comes on the child, it's only with what we call guf hamamon. What does it mean? Tangibly, formally, with the money that I'm now giving you. I bought you that sandwich. Here it is. I'm giving you this $10. I'm hiring this nurse. אבל באבדתו, כיוון שאין האב נהנה באבדה עצמה, אין הבן חייב להפסיד אבדתו בשביל אביו. But the lost object, I may lose my tie. That has nothing to do with my parents. The parent does not receive a direct pleasure or satisfaction from that money. Therefore, what do you need to do? You need to take care of your own lost object. Now,
My father is also care about my money.
the what? Oh, your father is also cares about the tie that I lost. That's wonderful, and he should.
Because
And he
his
should.
money is, if you are not happy, he's not happy.
Okay.
You understand? It's also another
Shimshon, I'm laughing, not because what you say is laughable, just because Tosfot will talk about it a little bit at the end. And that's become such an, what do you call it? A Pandora box? Yeah? Teivat Pandora. In Hebrew, it's the same thing. You always take things from Hebrew. It's called a Pandora box, and you really open it to so many opinions. What do I mean? And Moro Shimshon, I'll put you on hold for just a second. Basically, the first thing that Tosfot says, he's trying to divide between two different obligations. According to the opinion that says that who is responsible for the parents? The child. If we talk about a direct correlation between my money and honoring your parents, then you need to obligate, and you are obligated to what? Support your parents, according to that opinion. However, when there is indirect pleasure or satisfaction from your possessions, you are not obligated to lose it. I'm not saying that you can't use it to support your parents, but you are not obligated to what? To lose it. So then, Tosfot says, just one second. ואף על גב דאמרינן בסמוך כדי שיטול ארנקי ויטיל הים ואינו מחלימו למאן דאמר משל בן עתה מאירי באותו עניין שאש לאב קורת רוח בכך. He says that according to the, you remember that story that the parents took the wallet and threw it to the Mississippi River? According to the opinion that says that it comes all from the child, right? And we spoke about the fact that if he threw the wallet, obviously the opinion that says that everything comes from the child will be very upset, right? Answer is that the father has some kind of a satisfaction, even if it's not monetary satisfaction. There is what we call korat ruach. What is korat ruach? Like every parent in the room, you know, when your children do what you expect them to do or want them to do, what do you have? It's called nachat, or nachas in your language. Nachat, okay? Pleasure, satisfaction, enjoyment that your will or your command, quote unquote, was fulfilled. Now that's open a Pandora box because again, if till now it was very hard to understand, for example, what is intermediate level and what does it mean luxury and what do you mean by supporting, now we have another things to consider, and what is it? What will make satisfaction or pleasure to my parents? Now I can tell you, I can attest from just from a short experience of 10 years, some parents, the only thing they want from their kids is what? Hold my hand for 12 hours. Okay? Read me the newspaper for 5 hours. Is that something that I need to do? According to that opinion that says that it's on the child. So that's what I really said from the get-go. It's really not so much about the questions on the extreme. The most of the questions are where? In the gray area. Now, the next Tosfot. Tosfot says, אורו לרבנן לרבי ירמיה כמאן דאמר משלב, משמע שכך הלכה. So if you ask yourself, if I'm going to get any halachic decision in that class, you will get, but only half today and half next week. That's only to entice you to come next week. But half of the answer is, yes, we have a halachic decision according to Tosfot that says that the halacha is according to the opinion that the assets comes from whom? Mishel Av, from the parents. Now, Veheicha delet lela'av, and when the parents do not have any money, they tried, but they don't have it. Ve'it lelaben, and the son or the child has it. Chayav haben lazun aviv. Then the obligation turned on the child to support his parents. Now, the problem is, and I will ask you the question before I will go into some other commentators. When we say that the halachic decision is that the money comes from the parents. Now, if the parents do not have it, it goes on the child. Now the child becomes obligated. I want to ask you a question. Is the child obligated because of this is part of now honoring his parents? Or is obligated only because it's a charity case?
It's honoring parents because he doesn't have to pay for everyone's parents, just his own.
Okay, so one suggestion is becoming a part of honoring your parents. And therefore, all the things that we discussed before, that we really see, it seems to be that honoring your parents is it's not mitzvah tzedakah, it's not a part of mitzvah of charity, of giving tzedakah, but it's honoring your parents. So therefore, you will suggest that that after the father does not have it, the entire obligation goes and sits on the shoulders of the child. Very good, one suggestion. Also, if you are all with me? I don't want to lose anyone. Any lost objects here? No, Baruch Hashem, good. If we say that the obligation, according to that opinion, to honor your parents and to sustain them comes from tzedakah, what other questions can come up now? If it's only tzedakah, what's happened?
Is the minimum, are they?
Is there very good? Are they basic, intermediate, luxury? A. B. What's happened if I'm supporting heavily other institutions that also need the same thing in terms of need? Or even more, let's say you really a supporter of an institution or an organization for abused children. And you are sponsoring a child there. You know, there are many organizations that you sponsor a child. You are really sponsoring a child. It costs you $10,000 a month. I think it's probably normal numbers, okay? $10,000 a child. Now you have the situation with your parents, and it will cost $10,000. What do? You don't have more than $10,000 in that tzedakah. What do you do? Split will not help any of them, okay? I knew you were thinking about, let's split it, okay? Splitting will not help. It's like the King Solomon deal. We can't cut the baby into two, okay? You need to make a decision. The $10,000 go to the abused child or to your parents. What do? If you say it's only tzedakah, so then you have some laws of tzedakah that you need to support more. Your family members comes first before anyone else, right? So you need to prioritize it. And that's become...
And then go knock on doors to replace the ticket.
Oh, yeah, okay. You need to do a fundraiser for that abused child. That's true. So what you see, and I don't try to make it more complicated than it is, okay? But you can see how many things we as halachic decisors needs to what? To consider before we even give you an answer. And how many sleepless nights we need to have in order to give you a right answer. And then to have enough sleep to give you the right answer too, by the way. Right? So that's the idea of to try to understand the entire picture, that it is not a simple picture. Now, by the way, you know what, let's leave that because that will be too complicated. Okay, come on. Okay. Now, the Rif, Rabbi Yitzchak El-Fassi, what he did from the 10th century, what he did was to take the Talmud and to basically to try to get rid of all the negotiations and to try to codify what the Talmud said. So when he dealt with the question of who is obligated to pay for the parents, for their care, for their long-term care, children or parents, he said, you know what? The halacha is that it comes from the parents. What happens if the child is wealthy and the parents do not have? Kaifinan le laben. You know what is kaifinan le? We force the son to give money. V'shaklinan mineh betorat tzedakah v'yahavinan le'avua. We force the child. Now, by the way, in ancient time, Talmudic time, to force someone is not to have a tough talk with him. I'm talking also about some physical pressure. Okay? Let's just not be too illustrative, Shimshon. We'll just keep it in a way that we can use some other ways to force this guy rather than just like a Godfather talk, okay? Maybe a Godfather talk it is, yeah. We will going to offer him something that he obviously cannot refuse, and he will give it. So first and foremost, you see something historical here. Not hysterical, but historical. You know, we live in a different world. You know, people start saving money and they have the, not IRS, what do you call it, but the 401k, and they do this, and now they have insurance for this and insurance for that, and you have people with trust funds, and they didn't have it. You have a field, and you have 3 horses, and, you know, some cattle, and maybe you had some real estate, but all the money was what? Was not invested. It's not like investments. So basically, when the parent had problems and they came to the child said, what? I have 20 children to take care of, okay? This is his problem. Yeah, he's my father. I will try to do my best, but you can't do it to me. And what the rabbis will say? You will force him. By the way, just to give you an example that is a horrible example, but you can learn a lot of history from rabbinic decrees. There was a decree in Usha. Usha is a name of a place in Israel. That back then that the parents are obligated to support their kids until the age of 6. Now, what can you learn from such a decree?
They were abandoning their children.
Before age of 6. You had to force the parents not to throw their kids from the house to go to work or whatever before the age of 6. That's the poverty that was in Israel. So I think it gives us a little bit of an understanding of what's going on. You know, some parents tell me that they cannot get rid of their children even when their children are 50. Okay, so we talk about 6 years old. 6 years old. That's the rabbinic decree as they respond to what? To what was the reality. The reality was parents will dump their kids before the age of 6 and tell them go to work or someone will feed you. Okay. So we, I think, understand why we need to force the child to do that. Now, by the way, there is one consideration that we did not discuss, and I will just throw it there, just because we have 7 minutes, so I will have a little bit of fun with you. You know, the child may have tremendous feelings and emotions towards his parents. But sometimes that son or daughter can be married to someone who does not share the same emotions towards her or his parents, which means the in-laws. And as much as he would like to support his or her spouse, they say to each other, whoa, it's not your money. It's our money. And you spend our money. And especially when times progress, and let's say the parents are 90 and you are 65, 70, you already start thinking about whom? About yourself too. I'm not talking only about your children and college and weddings and grandchildren college. I'm talking about yourself. Just would you be able to support yourself? So things are not so simple. You want to add to it more? I can do it. Now, why not? You are the wealthiest of your siblings. And your siblings knows that, or at least they think they know, the easiest thing to know is what? Is how much another Jew needs to give to tzedakah, right? That's the easiest thing to do. Or how much you have. But the idea is that sometimes it's the reality. One of the siblings is wealthier than the others. Can the other siblings come to him and say, no, you need to do that? Or another complicated situation, let's say one of the children was in a business with his parents. And basically he made a lot of money because of that partnership, and the others did not do it, for whatever reason. Can they come and say, all those years, you have years of plenty because of our parents, and now, pay back. So basically the human drama and the family dynamic is not discussed here. Here we talk about halachic vacuum. You have money, your parents do not have, we're going to force you. If you don't want to give it willingly, we're going to force you to give it. But this is halachic vacuum.
One thing is guest said about Kibud Aveh, that the woman doesn't have to lachabed her parents if her husband doesn't want.
Oh, Moshe Shimshon, you are correct, but I will not discuss it right now.
Just telling you that they went there too. She doesn't have Kibud Aveh as the son.
Right, but the problem is,
Because she has like master, but is not her husband, who is bringing the money. And we're talking
yeah,
about
but that's,
that.
you're talking about ancient, more of an ancient society.
We're talking about
So the question is does that apply to what we have today?
But we take everything from the Gemara.
We do, but things change,
About
but monetary relationships now between husbands and wife totally change. We see it also in Gitin and Gerushin. We see it with divorces. We see how we approach money that was accumulated by both.
It's not only the money.
No, it's not only the money. It can be also time out.
Kibud.
Yeah,
Kibud Aveh.
I understand. And it can be many, many things. And look, we didn't even discuss the stress that it can put on the family. In terms of, for example, if one of the parents lives out of town and one of the spouse needs to go out of town for a week, 2, 3 weeks, the stress that it puts on the family, right? The father, the husband said, I can't deal with the kids for 3 weeks, but what do you expect me to do? Or vice versa. We didn't even discuss even one thing of that. So Shimshon, I don't want to ignore what you said, but it's all bring it to family dynamic that we can discuss right now. I want to try to give some kind of the indications of how we try to build this halachic structure. Now, what do we have? 3 minutes, okay. So in the next 3 minutes, I will try to go at least through the run. Rabbeinu Nissim. Rabbeinu Nissim basically says the following. I will try just to summarize it. He says the following. That's on page 3 at the bottom. It says that he agrees the halacha should be that really who is responsible to support the parents? The parents themselves. If they don't have the money, it goes to whom? To the children. But it goes to the child only as what? As tzedakah, which has its own laws in terms of priorities and also in terms of how much you give. For example, in tzedakah, the maximum that you should give is how much percentage of your wealth? Not more than 20%. Once, chomesh. But that's like the largest amount that you can give. Not while you are alive. Not after you're dead, you can give 100% if you want. But while you are alive, you can give up to 20%. Halevai, right? We wish. But it's up to 20%. So if that's true, we also have a problem. Let's say that let's say you give the 20% in order to support your parents, but let's say it's not enough. We get to the same problem. Okay, so who is going to support them? Now, the third thing that the Ran says is, the last thing that he says, that he wanted to explain the Jerusalem Talmud, what I told you before, exactly like what I explained it to you at the beginning. That when we say that someone needs to come a beggar and to collect money, it's not in order to fulfill his obligation to honor his parents, but rather to sustain himself. And why? Because in tzedakah, there is no obligation. If I need to give tzedakah, there is no obligation on me to go and beg for money so I can what? That I can give tzedakah. Doesn't make any sense, right? And therefore, if you put this mitzvah to honor your parents as tzedakah, it obviously does not require you to what? To go and beg for money. So now, for the next minute, we are going to summarize everything we learned today. We had a question. Who is responsible? We had 2 opinions. Son, the children, or the parents. We challenged both opinions. We saw advantages and disadvantages in both. We saw that honor can be divided to 2 levels. We talked about direct and indirect satisfaction. We talked about nachat, not spiritual, but more of a satisfaction. We also spoke about what? About intermediate level and luxury. Then we also saw that there is an interesting thing between what? Between the poskim, the halachic decisors, what's the halacha? And when you go home now, you need to know that the halacha is, for now, until next week, is that it's from the parents. However, if the parents do not have it, it goes to whom? To the children. Now, what kind of an obligation the children have, if the parents do not have the money? According to most opinions, it's from the law of tzedakah, and according to some opinions, it can be from the law of honoring your parents. Basically, the honoring your parents goes back on the child because the parents do not have the money. That's for tonight. Thank you.